kind of kept in the shadows?
It's yes and yes. You know, the answer is we're not where we used to be, but we're surely not where we need to be. Their stigma is still pervasive, and it undermines our efforts to fight HIV, and it makes it difficult for people to get tested for HIV. It makes it difficult for people to go on treatment. It makes it difficult for people to adhere to HIV. So we really have to do a better job of kind of talking about this issue and fighting stigma at every front.
Because I think so many people think, oh, this was yesterday's news story. People don't get HIV anymore. I just think because it's not front and center, it's not top of mind.
Well, and the reality is 45 to 50,000 people each year in the U.S. today are getting HIV. And the stigma that Phil talked about, we support access to care networks that get people into care. We have about 4,000 HIV positive people in care, and about 30% have delayed getting access to treatment because they didn't want someone to know their HIV status, and that's in 2014.
And Katie, we get calls every day. We get calls from mothers who are dealing with the grief and guilt of having a child living with HIV. We get calls from young people who found out that they're HIV positive and either didn't know how to protect themselves or didn't know that their lives are worth protecting. And often they're more afraid of the stigma than they are of the disease.
And clearly attitudes still need to change. Clippers owner Donald Sterling made headlines yet again on Monday night when he accused Magic Johnson of being a poor role model on CNN's AC 360. Let's take a look.
He's got AIDS. Did he do any business? Did he help anybody in South LA?
Well, I think it's HIV. He doesn't actually have full-blown AIDS. But
Well, what kind of a guy goes to every city, has sex with every girl, then he catches HIV? And is that someone we want to respect and tell our kids about?
What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, quite frankly, I was shocked. You know, I really had hope that those days are over. Clearly, they're not. It's really sad that Mr. Sterling is using people living with HIV to deflect his own transgressions and characterizing people living with HIV as sexual, amoral predators, is really a horrible thing. Now, the truth of the matter is that undermines and hurts our ability to end the AIDS epidemic. We really need to be creating an environment where people are comfortable disclosing their HIV. Now, and to that note, Magic Johnson is a perfect role model. Now, he single-handedly changed the discussion in Black communities.
Not to mention the fact that he's given so much back to those communities and is helping create businesses on a daily basis, by the way. Meanwhile, Michael, the CDC released a report on HIV in America, and it was some bad news for African Americans in particular.
Yeah, so we're at a point in the U.S. where we have about 1.1 million people living with HIV. And while we've seen some tick down in infections, and we're around 45,000 a year, particular populations have not. Gay, bisexual men, communities in the South, and most particularly African American and specifically Black gay men have seen a continual growth in new infections.
And Phil, that's no surprise to you, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, the truth of the matter, Katie, that AIDS in America today is a Black disease, and it's been a Black disease from a long time. As early as 1984, when we first started characterizing the disease demographically, Black people represented 25% of the epidemic then. Now, today, of that 1.1 million people that Michael talked about, nearly half of them are Black. Nearly half of the new infections are Black. No matter how you look at it through the lens of gender or sexual orientation or age or education or economic status or where you live in the country, Black people are disproportionately impacted by the disease.
And that is because?
It's a number of things. One, the Black community was slow to respond to the disease. Two, we've not made the investment that we need to make in these communities. Three, we've not focused enough on raising HIV science literacy. Four, HIV is largely driven by poverty, and having a lack of access to health care undermines our ability for people to get into care. It also undermines our ability to prevent HIV infections.
I know the Affordable Care Act, it will help those who, with screening and treatment for HIV and AIDS. But what else, in your view, needs to be done, Michael?
So I think there's been some huge changes in the last 4 years, and that people don't realize it. So we have learned that early treatment can not only extend my life to that of someone uninfected, but by putting an HIV positive person onto early treatment, we reduce the likelihood that they could transmit to someone else. And in fact, in 2011, NIH showed we reduce it by 96%. When someone is on treatment, virally suppressed, it is virtually impossible possible to transmit HIV. And yet our challenge today in the U.S. is that 200,000 HIV positive people don't even know they have it. Another 200,000 who know haven't been linked to care. Another 250,000 have fallen out of care. And so at the bottom line, we only have 28% of the HIV positive population virally suppressed.
In the system. So obviously education, screening, and access are three critical areas you have to address. Well, we have to address. Michael Kaplan, Phil Wilson, and by the way, Dr. Lisa Fitzpatrick, thanks to you as well for your insight today. So great to meet you both. Thank you. And for a list of